Serious, Reddit. What is something you regret knowing? When I was 12, I went scrounging around the house for spare change. I immediately regretted knowing the contents of my mother's nightstand. One of my teachers in high school had this strange habit of leaving the classroom every so often and return after a period, sometimes as long as 40 minutes. Older students and graduates knew about it, so he had been doing it for a few years at least. People joked about it all the time. On a couple of occasions one person or another would follow him around. One person said he went to the cafe and got a slice of pizza, ate it and came back. One person said he went to one of the offices and came out after a bit. One person said he touched random doors while he walked around, doing nothing and eventually coming back. I joined in the jokes. It seemed harmless, and as far as teachers went he was knowledgeable and cared about his subject matter, which made him better than half our school at least. However, one of my parents was also a teacher at the school, and one day, when I randomly brought it up for some reason, my dad told me why the history teacher had this habit. Several years prior both his parents had gotten very sick within months of each other. For most of that school year he would regularly go down to the main office throughout the day to call the hospital or his parents' house. They would both pass away that year, but even years later the habit remained. I told a couple of my good friends about it. We refrained from the jokes from then on, but I couldn't bring myself to tell more people. There was one time the teacher left, but declared to the class he was going to fill his water bottle, obviously defensive. Somehow the jokes got back to him. I haven't thought about this in years. At the time I was already shocked and ashamed when I found out, but now, some 4 or 5 years later and a year after my dad passed away from heart problems, it's that much more heartbreaking to me. Every day for 2 months I drove my brothers and I to the palliative care hospital, and when it was finally over I suddenly didn't know what to do with myself. It's strange, thinking back, and suddenly so much makes sense. After the birds and the bees talk when I was 12, my mother admitted that my 5-year-old sister was conceived in my bed. I wish I was making that up. That tiny piece of information is one I wish I could forget. One time I went to check the time on my dad's phone, found out he was having an affair. How stupid my voice sounds. After hearing my recorded voice, I was never the same. Many of my daughter's maternal relatives are child groomers. Her great-grandmother's husband arped all her kids, all the kids arped their nieces and nephews. Nothing was reported. Nothing can be proven. Her grandfather has gone on pedo trips to Thailand. I had the bad touch talk when she was 6 and have continued it still. I can't control who she is around when she is with her mother. All I can do is make sure she knows who she can run to. That my uncles killed a couple of guys. One guy arped one of my aunts when my mom was about 7 or so. When they found out they took him to see grandpa and uncle's own fishing boats. So that is apparently a euphemism they use. Another guy tried to kill my grandfather because he wouldn't hire him. He shot at my grandpa through a window and narrowly missed my grandmother. The boys took him to see that night. My dad got a little drunk a couple of months ago and told me that he isn't in love with my mom anymore. They've been married 30+ years. She still doesn't know, and I don't have the heart to tell her. You never know how this could play out. People in long-term relationships fall in and out of love with each other. If he's saying it, he could be done, but he could fall in love with her again. I always knew that my parents had some kind of family secret. Various mutterings, amended streams of conscious act in my childhood. From the sound of it, I was under the impression that I had an older sibling. I am the oldest sibling of 4, so I was fixated on the few little details. But as I grew older, I assumed it was a very morbid kind of imaginary friend delusion I had. When I was in high school, I was talking to my mother when she slipped in saying something about her early relationship with my dad. I pushed her on it and found out that she had stayed with my dad after they had a child at age 15. She went on to tell me that I had had not 1 but 3 older siblings that were killed in some kind of accident. My mom broke down, and I didn't push for details and never have. That day, I went from being the oldest of 4 to the middle of 7. Probably my frame of reference for the concept of trauma. Every obsession, every worry and character flaw of my teenage self at that time burned into my character like scars. As a lawyer, the sheer volume of child assault being prosecuted in the court system was mind-boggling. I don't know if I regret knowing it, but it was quite pleasant living in a world where I thought that I didn't have to watch my kids like hawks literally at all times, even with family. That my 13-year-old sister was RP'd by a specialist and a PFC in the US Army on a military base, but because one of them was the distant relative of a major commander, the case was shelved due to lack of evidence. The soldier even confessed to drugging her, but no charges were brought. WTF. There was a post once about serial killers. Somebody posted a link to a Wikipedia page about this woman who would take in babies for money and then kill them by wrapping rope around their necks. She said something like she regrets that it never lasted long because she liked watching them die. As a father, it really fricked me up when I read that, and I still feel sick whenever I think about it. Finding out who my ex is dating. Similarly, finding out my ex is dating anyone at all. I want her to be happy, but it was more comforting believing she was going through the same thing as me. Finding out your mate told your ex he has feelings for her a week after breaking up, and hearing she feels the same. My ex didn't even wait until we were broken up. My mate also didn't stick around afterwards. Trust me, it hurts like a freaking bee, but good riddance to crap rubbish. That my parents have a frick swing stored under their bed. A while back, I was in a bad place, feeling like life couldn't get better, and if it did, it wouldn't be worth living anyway. One night I was feeling like my wrists were looking especially slashable, so I called one of my closest friends. He drove over and stayed the next several hours with me, talking me through some things. He's also had serious depression issues throughout the years, so he was speaking as someone who really got it. Eventually I said, I think about doing this every day. What kind of life is it when you think about that every day? He said, that's how I live mine, and went on to tell me something I sometimes really wish he hadn't. That the main reason for his suicidal depression is that he lives with the memories of groping his younger siblings when he himself was fairly young. He himself had been groped several years before these events occurred. In some ways, I know why he told me this, because I really did need to get out of my own head and realize that it is possible to live with horrible memories and feelings going on inside of you, and that it is possible to have a fulfilling life with people who love and forgive you. Also, he put so much trust in me, and that's the most precious thing of all. I'm gifted with the ability to compartmentalize really well, so normally I don't think about this anymore. It doesn't hang over our meetings. Usually when we hang out it never even crosses my mind. But sometime it gets stuck in my head that someone I love did those things and also had them done to him. And that just sucks. Certain stories of how kids were abused. The ways adults have hurt kids frick with my mind. Some I don't even understand how it is physically possible or feasible, and all I don't understand what would cause someone to think this was an okay thing to do. For me, the abuse story that really affected me was one where two sons held their mother captive for years and repeatedly RP'd and tortured her. The idea of being tortured by someone you gave birth to and raised from infancy sends chills up my spine. What my sister's cooch looks like. Bashfully, I walked in on her in a towel and bent over. I saw way more than I ever wanted to and have only mentioned it to one friend and now the whole internet. What the warm orgasm feeling of having H running through your system. It's such a hard feeling to describe. Going on 7 months clean. I want to know, but I don't want to know. That most people find me annoying. My self-esteem has been crap since the day I found out. The story of Junko Furuta. I don't recommend looking it up. It's a story of RP and torture, and that's all anyone really needs to know. Truly horrific. I've read it a couple of times and honestly can't believe it's real. That my mum used to invite door-to-door reps inside and blow them. Not even frickin' kidding, dude. I recently decided to change careers. That humans are basically reduced to red spray when involved in high-speed car crashes. Wish I hadn't seen that YouTube video. I've been at a scene where a guy got hit by a tractor trailer and most of his body just missed it, but his head popped off and landed a good distance away. The physics that happens in high-speed impacts involving cars and trucks is insane. Mom wanted me to program her phone to watch the TV on it. I look up the model number and it starts with a B. History results show black girl scissoring. Maybe she was looking for a video she saw of two crafty African American females cutting out fun shapes for their scrapbooks. My grandpa's fricked up Vietnam stories. Bombs on babies. Little girls dropping grenades. Accidental friendly fire. What happens when you get shot in the grenade on your belt. And most of all the fact that my grandpa got a Purple Heart for getting his dong literally shot off. What a man who has been brutally murdered looks and sounds like while he's dying. When I was a teenager, I watched the Three Guys One Hammer video online. It was so easy to access, and I was just a stupid kid who didn't think about what I was consuming. But now those images and sounds will always be part of me. To some degree, you can't unwatch something like that. Part of me now knows what a poor grandfather looked like while his life was being gruesomely stolen from him for somebody else's pleasure, and it makes me very sad. 1. I dated someone who told me about her sister being abducted by a serial rapist killer when they were teens. We dated for a while, so I got to meet and know her sister a bit, and her experience was a nightmare beyond imagining, and the details made it terrifyingly real. I didn't sleep for weeks when I learned about it, and still have nightmares on occasion. 2. When I was in college, a female friend of mine came to my room weeping at 2 AM. Describing how she had been roofied and arped by the guy she had been hanging out with. But she didn't want anyone to know because she felt stupid and didn't want me to tell anyone. So I didn't. But I saw him almost every day, and I've rarely had anyone make my blood boil so. 3. Someone else I dated told me, after we'd been together a while, about how as a child she was repeatedly arped by a family member over years, and how her entire family was aware of it at the time and did nothing. She even worked up the courage to go to the police and they took it nowhere. I don't understand how someone can love their family so much while they've done something so horrible to them. I know horrible things happen in the world, and part of being a good person is looking evil in the face and deciding to build a better world. But that notion doesn't stop the nightmares. What it sounds like when a man gets his head sawn off, but a more than likely dull blade. Made the mistake of watching a beheading video back in 2005. Oh man, I remember that video. Ruined a house party once we saw it. Whatever light was in the room slowly faded after we saw that. I think we saw the original Paris Hilton video that night, too. Poor choices were made. The Doritos story. A text post on Reddit that has legitimately ruined a tasty snack for me. I learned tonight that my long distance friend is going to end his life, and he wants me to log on to his Steam account every day so his friends think he is still around. I haven't talked to him in weeks, so this is out of the blue. Won't explain himself, and is fully decided and went as far as buying over $1,000 worth of items to repay me with. The entire thing is absolutely surreal, and the burden is overwhelming. I've had a pretty normal life until now, and I have no idea how to respond to it. Seeing my grandfather for the last time. He had been of failing health, and in the end he had multiple strokes and was alive via machines. I absolutely did not want to see him. The whole freaking family goes, "You need to see him. You'll regret not seeing him," and those that have seen him don't tell me a word, just that he's laying down. So I go in there expecting him to be basically asleep with his eyes closed. Nope. His eyes are cloudy and wide open, pupils huge, mouth agape and drooling. He's just looking wildly around, eyes not focusing and just going in circles. He's making raspy moaning noises. He's completely gone. Just about no brain activity whatsoever according to the doctor. So great. My last sight of my grandfather wasn't him happy with the family all around him the day before in the hospital. It's him of a brain dead drooling vegetable with those freaking cloudy gone eyes. Thanks family. I would give anything to go back in time and tell my family to frick off and just gone home with my last memory of my grandfather being happy. I do hate my family for lying to me and not telling me just how bad it was I was walking in on. I feel you man. My grandmother died in September, and I'm glad that I live across the country. My memories of her will always be of the good times, and seeing her in good spirits. My daughter is a stripper. That I'm going to have to struggle for any happiness in my life. Even then the odds aren't great. At the suggestion of the president, I went and watched a few videos of Syrian kids dying from sarin gas. Don't ever do that. It sears into your mind and for months you have nightmares or violent daydreams. how it feels getting out of a pretty serious 2-year relationship only to realize how manipulative and demanding the other person was and how, no matter how much was given, it was never enough. Crap hurts, man. Wish I could just put the memories away for a little while, just until I've figured out how to cope with everything else going on right now. That I saw all the signs of my father having a serious sexual issues. Throughout my teens years, my father multiple roommates that lo and behold ended up having child P, or used his PC for it. My stepmother left and it was like P heaven for him. He thought he was slick but was not. Would almost catch him jerking off many times. He never cleared the browser history, so was able to see all the P looked up. Lots of strange things but nothing illegal. I lived there for a while, and I get blamed for the P on the family PC. But I had my own laptop, so I could and would enjoy some P in the comfort of my own room. Not on the family PC in the middle of the house, out in the open. Get kicked out of the house for this. Though I never freaking touched the PC. Lo and behold, about a year after I moved kicked out, he's in prison for child P. But I've always kicked myself for ignoring the signs and never really voicing it. When I was sometime in my teens, my mom was giving me the talk. She's fairly liberal for a Mexican woman and she told me about some of her previous sexual experiences. None of them were too bad, thankfully. Little did I know that she saved the hardcore ones for my 20s. I have no idea how it even got to this point, but eventually she mentioned one of my biological father's experiences. For some context, the man has never been a big part of my life, and by that point he had been out of my life for years. Most of what I know about the man has been through other people's stories. Anyway, she told me about the time him and his brother picked up some girl at a bar that was into both of them. Neither one of them could figure out which one of them should hook up with her, so they just decided to DP her. It's been almost 10 years and I still don't know why she felt the need to share that. I'd ask, but I'm afraid she'll elaborate and I'll find out which brother took which end. That my grandparents drugged my mom to force her into an abortion when she was 14. That I know what a cumbox is. My boyfriend's parents just lost their house. I told my mom what he had told me and she didn't think the story lined up, so she went all Sherlock Holmes and started looking up his parents' names in our county's public records. She got more than she bargained for because she found a locked file labeled adoption with my BF and his next oldest brother's names listed on it. None of his other 3 siblings were on there. They are all way younger. He's never mentioned being adopted though and is well past the age where you would tell a kid something like that. He's mid-20s. His family has already had a really crappy few months and I don't want to cause any more drama by asking about it. He has the same last name as his dad and was in the military and claims his dad is on his original birth certificate, so I'm really confused. I don't think his parents were married yet when him and his brother were born, because his dad was still in the military and away from home a lot. The papers weren't even filed until he was almost 10 years old, but a biological father wouldn't have to adopt his own kids, even if they weren't married yet, right? I regret knowing because now I'm insanely curious and I can't say anything because this has that feel of your darkest family secret to it and I don't want to start anything. Kevin Cosgrove's phone call to 911 while he was trapped in the World Trade Center. I regret knowing what he sounded like when you could hear the building start to fall and him yelling. Horrifying. You've been visited by the Good Policy Grandpa. You will be blessed with good economics and healthcare, but only if you comment sleep well burner. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check out another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.